Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
This is Grace-allison, your host, and I have with us today Kathi-laughlin, who specializes in overcoming the unexpected and rescuing plans that have gone awry. With over 25 years of experience in business intelligence, Kathi is a respected voice in executive leadership circles. Welcome, Kathi. And tonight we're going to open up with what you want to talk about, which is why people are leaving their life on the table.
Thank you, Grace. I'm delighted to be here and be a part of the show and share this conversation with you. Yes, I really have found that with disruptive change, we get so startled by it that we quite often, a good portion of us just goes into hibernation, if you will, because we're not really sure what to do, and so we don't do anything. And it's that lack of action in the face of this disruptive change that causes us to miss opportunities. And so when you think about negotiation, if we have anybody in the audience that's done negotiation, when we talk about pricing, we talk about money, we talk about whatever we're negotiating, one of the common phrases is that you left money on the table, that you walked away, you didn't get the best deal, you didn't make the right deal, you didn't get the best you could have gotten together, and somewhere along the way, money got left on the table. And that's how I see change. How I see change is that we negotiate with change. We negotiate our way through it. We negotiate with it. We make something of it. And when we make the best deal, we don't leave any part of our life on the table. But too often, we stop driving. We stop being in control of the conversation of our life. And so consequently, when we move past that change, we've actually left a good portion of our life sitting on the table, and we never go back and reclaim it. That, to me, is so incredibly sad when you think about masses amount of talent and wisdom that are out there in people that they got rattled. Something happened. They got rattled, and they moved on.
It's really amazing. Exactly. And your book, Adjusted Sales, what does this make possible? Your book, Adjusted Sales, addresses those issues. So how do we stay relevant? And talk about your book when you're talking about staying relevant when change happens.
Well, I think for me, the one thing that we all have to accept is that change is inevitable. We're just creatures of change because we're creatures of growth and we're living, breathing. That means we're changing. So when it comes to the inevitable changes that are going to happen for us, I think we start, the question is not what they're going to be. We get so hung up on knowing what they're going to be. And I think we need to shift the power and say it's not what they're going to be. The most powerful question we ask is who's going to decide what they mean. And that's what my book is about. My book is about what happens when these things happen. And I come from personal experience here. I talk about my going through as a single mom of many, many years, going through empty nest and what that meant. I go through being a 20-something year executive and going to work one day and finding out my services were no longer required and having an empty job, and then going through a significant health scare with hepatitis C and finding out what I was facing there. All of those opportunities were for me, all of those things for me turned into where I really had to face that I was in charge. You could say
I know you call yourself a possibilitarian.
Yes, because it's all about what's possible. That's the subtitle of the book. What does this make possible? When you look at something happens to you, your immediate response is not, why is this happening to me? Your immediate response should be, what does this make possible for me? Because everything makes something else possible. Yes, there are endings. Yes, some of these things are hard, really hard. It's not easy to lose someone we love. It's not easy to go through a divorce. It wasn't easy to restructure my life. It wasn't easy to lose, what was really my work and my life and my job. It's not easy, but it's not the end of the world. It's the beginning of a new one. And we have to be willing to let that go and say, okay, now that I'm here, what does this make possible? There were so many things that I could do because I had that new place in my life, that new compassion, that new knowledge, all the things that I had gained from going through these experiences that made my life richer, not diminished.
And I see here that you choose to say, why not me?
There's a saying that goes around in personal development circles. I'm sure you've heard it. How you do anything is how you do everything. And what that really came down to for me was this question of, why me? If you say, why me, when things are bad, you're also saying, why me, when things are good, because you're coming at everything from a victim perspective, from a place of fear. So if something good is going to happen to you, all of a sudden you're cynical. You don't trust it. So when you don't trust
I think you should talk about your experience with your doctor. I think that really sends it home for people.
For me, it was so important. But I went to the why not me. So I went from why me to why not me, because then, just to finish that thought, the why not me is now you're not just saying why not me and the bad stuff. You're saying why not me and the good stuff. So it shifts that power play. But yes, what happened for me with the doctor was when I first got the diagnosis of hepatitis C. The next thing I had to do was find a doctor to decide on a treatment plan, go through the drill. This just the stuff you got to do. And so as I was going through that, I really got fixated on how I got this illness, how I got this virus. I didn't have a lifestyle that would support this. I couldn't understand it. I got really obsessed with finding out how I got it. And I had this most wonderful doctor, and he was very patient with me. And he just said to me in one of our sessions we were talking, he just said, he really made it clear to me that I was going to have to shift, because he said, do you want to get well? He put it so clearly to me to say, do you want to know how you got this? Or do you want to get over this? Do you want to get well from this? He said, we can spend all this time worrying about it. He said, but here's the deal, Kathi. Even if you ever could know how you got it, it's not going to change the fact that you have it. There is a point in time in this stuff where you have to stop fighting the reality of it, accept the reality, and move on from that to what now is possible. And he said, I'd like to now focus on how we get you well. How do we cure you of this? How you got it is no longer relevant. How we're going to get rid of it now is what's relevant. And I think that's the thing we have to do. That's where we have to move to. It's not how this happened, it's what's going to happen next.
And that's how you stay relevant, as you ask the question, why not me?
Yes, and you're constantly learning.
Am I learning? We're constantly learning.
I think here's the thing. A lot of times we fear change because we don't understand it. We're afraid of it. We're afraid of the unknown element of it. When you're in a position of learning and you're constantly working toward learning and building yourself up, it changes. I call it, where are you on the change-scape? Because if you're down here at the bottom where you're sitting here hovering, afraid of it, and you're not embracing it, then that's crippling you. But at some point when you're learning and constantly working to grow yourself, grow your skills, grow yourself, grow your life, grow your relationships, which change is really nothing more than that. When you're constantly doing that deliberately with intention, then what happens is you're keeping yourself relevant, and you're now have this learned response. I think it was I'm trying to remember the fellow that his name, and it's escaping me right at the moment, but he did a lot of coaching with Olympic athletes, and when he was doing all this coaching with Olympic athletes, he would take them through these mental exercises of when they were in their performance, right? When they were actually in the competitions and they were in the performance, what he had them going through in their mind was this phrase, just like drill. And it took all of the pressure of that moment, of that stress-filled event away, because all they had to do was go out there and be just like drill. And that's how life is to me, is those disruptive changes, those disruptive events are like those competitions. But all we have to do is go out and live our lives just like drill, just like what we've been doing all along, because we've been in this growth pattern.
So what do you think people are leaving on the table?
I think they're leaving their opportunity to serve. I think they're leaving the opportunity to apply what they've done in a new way. One of the things that I tell people is there's more value in the rest of your story than you ever dreamed possible. I mean, just think about some of your favorite stories. Think about some of your favorite trips or your favorite experiences, and come up like 25% through or halfway through and think, what if I had just ended it there? What if I'd never finished that? How much would I have lost? And that's the key. And I'm sure you've seen the illustration of the guy that's down under the ground. He's chipping away. He's getting to the mine. He's looking for gold. And we can see, because we've got a cross view, that he's only a few feet away from striking gold. But at that moment, he decides to give up because he doesn't know how close he is. So the thing is that I don't know that we could ever know exactly what we left on the table, but I know this. We're leaving some really important things on the table. Our ability to do more in the world, our ability to have more, learn more. I think for all of us, it's incumbent upon us to think, okay, we have to make sure that we're taking responsibility, and we can't be in this place where we're rescinding, what could happen to the whims of fate. We have to take that in our own hands.
And at this point, I'm going to say thank you, Kathi. We're going to take a break for our sponsors, and we'll be back in just a moment.
Love to read? Love to meet authors in person? Then check out bookfestival.network to find a book festival in your region of Texas. We are adding book festival events throughout the year, so sign up to get notices and even a coupon towards purchase of a Texas author's book. Sign up at bookfestival.network.
Howdy, I'm John Cruder, the Midnight Marauder. I guess you might say that I'm a vigilante who rights the wrongs I see along my many travels to balance the scales of justice, especially those of the corrupt and murderous members of the Town Council of Bandera, Texas. You can follow my many adventures in a series of Midnight Marauder books written by Roy Clinton on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com. Or if you prefer, listen to my adventures in audiobook form by downloading them from Audible.com or iTunes. This is R. William James, the voice of the Midnight Marauder.
A new online bookstore, IndieLector.store, is unlike any other. IndieLector.store offers great prices from top indie authors and supports authors at the same time by paying them more for their books. IndieLector.store has a readers club that gives you free books and special deals. Watch the IndieLector.store continue to grow before it opens in the fall of 2019 at IndieLector.store.
Remembrances from the Heart is a compilation book of heartfelt eulogies and poems that honor the deceased and comfort the living. Beautifully illustrated and spiritually written by Christian author Vicki Valen Johnson, who has created an artistry of words that will be healing for those suffering and inspiring to those listening, offering a sensitive message behind each passage. This cherished table book is available worldwide or at a Christian bookstore near you. For more information, please visit remembrancesfromtheheart.com.
Do you love to read great new ebooks? Visit ebg247.com. Be the first to discover the next bestseller. At ebg247, we have the web's largest selection of great new book reads, from that amazing new fiction or nonfiction to horror, romance, and fantasy. We even have today's best children's books. That's ebg247.com. New books arrive daily, and all ebooks start at just 99 cents. If you love to read, then you'll love ebg247.com. Low prices, large selection, and an easy-to-use website. It's all only at ebg247.com.
Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Welcome back. This is Grace-Allison, and we have with us Kathi-Laughlin. Kathi, I want you to tell us how people can find you. What's your email, what your Twitter is, and how do you spell your name?
Okay, sure. It's pretty easy to find me. First, let me just tell everyone that the easiest place is my website, because it's the hub of everything, and you can connect to me on all social media platforms right from one place. And that my company name is Mackenzie Circle, and that's the site as well. It's MACKENZIE Circle, CIRCLE, so MackenzieCircle.com. And you can email me from there. As I said, you can connect on every single social media platform with me there. You can check out the blog and learn more there. But you certainly can email me at kathi.laughlin at MackenzieCircle.com. My name has a little tricky spelling, so it's Kathi. So a K at the front, an I at the back, Kathi with an I, .Laughman, LAUGHMAN, and it's Kathi.Laughlin at MackenzieCircle.com if someone wants to email me. But the website really is the simplest. Mackenzie Circle is on Facebook, as am I. You can also Twitter. My Twitter handle, as they say, is K Laughman. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find, or you can Google me, and it'll give you a lot of options probably. But I think that's the easiest way for them to find me. You can also find me on Amazon. I have an author page. So if you go to Amazon and you look for me on Amazon, you will find my author page along with my books.
Well, good. And so how did you get started as an author?
It was, I have this thing when I decide that I want to do something, I want to learn it from the inside out. And so I usually go into learning mode. And I was looking at some classes that I could take. And one of the gals was offering a class said, if you sign up for this course, I'll let you contribute a chapter in my next book. And I thought, what a great way to start learning about being an author and writing. And it's really started there for me, being a part of anthologies. And I did probably 3 or 4 of those kinds of books, just learning about what it meant to write drafts and work with editors and seeing how books got formatted. So that's really how I got started, and then eventually registered my company with Bowker and published through my own company my own first solo book last December. But I really got started that way, just by being a part of books. But before I wrote my own book, I also participated in launches of other people's books. because that gave me another inside look at the back half, right? So it's one thing to write it and then go through the whole production of the book. It's a whole other thing to do the marketing and releasing it out into the world, and that was fascinating and great fun. I really enjoyed that.
And so what do you think authors need to do to be successful and keep improving?
Well, I think that there's probably the number one thing that authors need to do is read. I can't emphasize enough the value and importance of reading, and not just in your space, right? Not just like if I'm personal development, nonfiction, and I read tons in that, but I also read fiction. And I also read spiritual books, and I also read a lot of business books. I read books in a lot of different genres because it's amazing how that cross-pollination gives you ideas of how you can better present your information. I think it's important to also to be constantly honing your skills. I'm taking a class right now through Ed2Go on creative writing. So I'm turning assignments in and getting feedback on it. I took a course in editing. I don't have great aspirations to be an editor, although I do quite a bit of that for folks. But, when you learn about editing, when you look at that process, it makes you a better writer. And then I would say the last thing is you need to hang around some authors. You need to hang around authors that are ahead of you, and those are just coming up, right?
Yes, I agree. Yes, absolutely. And you need to support them and have them support you. It's a community.
Well, just like with the Texas Authors community. I mean, when we come together, it's I always say that with the saying, I can't remember who said, maybe it was Mother Teresa, but they said you never diminish the brightness of your own flame by lighting someone else's candle. And I think that that's really true when we help somebody else share their work.
I totally agree with you. I'm on social media all the time, connecting with different authors, helping them with their work, and learning. I mean, like you say, we learn from those that have come before us, and we're helping those that are coming up. And it's really important to be part of that community. And that's one of the reasons why I love volunteering during this podcast, because it gives me an opportunity to meet so many interesting people.
Oh, I'm sure. Sure.
So how do you blend storytelling into your nonfiction stories?
It's a great question because I have to say that I think in my early days when I was writing blogs and articles, I wasn't very good at that. and so there were a lot of crickets out there. My stuff wasn't getting read because it's too dry, it's too boring. It's kind of like that old adage of a picture is worth 1,000 words. A story is a picture in words. And people need a way to relate to whatever it is you're teaching them. And so when you can tell them a story that is around that, and I'm not saying you have to go, to the extreme of it being, just making up stories, but I'm saying when you can weave a story that is a living, breathing example of the principle you're teaching, it becomes alive to people.
Okay, now I want you to tell us the story of your role model, Molly, your grandmother, because I think
my great grandmother actually.
Your great grandmother, the Cherokee Indian who inspired Molly Moments. Tell us about her, because I think this is a good example of what you're talking about.
It's a great example. Yeah. So my great grandmother, her name is Molly Mackenzie. Her father was Cherokee. Her mother was white. Her father was Cherokee. And she was born, prior to her being born, when her father and mother met, it was right around the time in Appalachia when they were moving all the Cherokees out. And you've heard the Trail of Tears and all the things that would happen with that. But they were doing some forced moves of the Native Americans. He didn't want to leave Molly's mother. And so he actually gave up all of his ties to his tribe to stay behind. But by this time, all of the Cherokee ways were ingrained in him. And one of the things that that in the Cherokee culture is the girls are the ones that get educated. So here we are in the 1800s when Molly comes into the picture, and all her contemporaries are learning how to sew and cook and wash and do all the things that back then girls were taught to do. He was adamant she was going to learn to read and write and do math and do all the things, because that's where his culture had his belief system. As a result of that, later in life, she was able to have her own business. So here comes Molly. Molly gets raised by this mixed family. She's a half-breed. She never fit in here. She doesn't fit in there. Mackenzie was the name that he took because it was a common immigrant name. So here she is, not feeling like she's got any real identity. She ends up getting married, having 4 children. Now, we're talking the late 1800s. Her husband turned out to give deadbeat dads a whole new name, a whole new persona. So he's out of the picture. She divorces him. I mean, nobody back then got divorces, but she divorced him because she didn't want him to have any claim over her children or herself. And she looked around and she said, okay, what do I have? I have to do something. I have 4 children to raise. She said, okay, I have a home and I have my kids. So I have a place of business and a staff. And she turned their home into a boarding house for the supervisors for the logging camps that were in that area. My grandfather ended up coming through there as a boarder, met my grandmother, who was a housemaid there. They married, went on, had my mom. So it just became this long chain. But what was throughout all of this, whether she realized it or not, was the seed of understanding how valuable her education had been to her, because she was prepared to do things. She was prepared to take action. So whenever I'm having a tough moment, whenever I'm having a tough time and I'm thinking, this is just too hard, that's what I call my Molly moments, because I think, what would Molly do? I think I look around and say, what do I have? What have I got, and how can I put that to work for me? How can I put that to work in my life and make something from that?
That's how you got Mackenzie Circle.
Mackenzie Circle. Mackenzie, her name was Molly Mackenzie, and it's Circle. It's Molly come full circle. I have the most marvelous quilt. It's probably, if not my prized possession, certainly up there in the top few. She started the quilt. My grandmother added to the quilt. My own mother has added to it. I've added to it, and now I'm finishing it, and it's going to ultimately go to my granddaughter, who just celebrated her 18th birthday. Her middle name is Mackenzie. So she's going to get the Molly quilt.
That's a wonderful story. It sounds like you need to write a book about that.
Yeah, I thought about that. I thought I might have to cross that line a little bit and mix a little of fiction with nonfiction, because there's so much I don't know. But I think with research we could fill in the blanks,
Well, I want to thank you for being with us tonight, Kathi. We're going to wrap it up, and we want to wish you all the best with your book, Adjusted Sales, What Does This Make Possible? And
thank you so much.
Have a good night. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.